Hey guys, Frickson here. Before I begin, I would like to thank all of you for subscribing to the channel. We increased our channel size 3 times. By the time I started filming that, I was gonna say 2 times because we had 200 subs. Now we're at 300. It's like fucking. I don't even know how to describe it. That's crazy, honestly. 300 people. I wanted to have a video uploaded to the channel, not just a session or a VOD. I just wanted to begin with a general video, trying to help out like the average player, aka somebody in gold. So before I begin, I would like to invite you to our Discord, which is discord.gg/frickson. Now let's talk about the video itself. What's the difference between a diamond and a gold player? So a lot of players that come to me for coaching in like plat, gold, elo come with a goal. I want to be diamond. I want to be diamond 4, I want to be diamond 3, or I want to climb to diamond. That's just a general goal for them. That's like the most common goal, to be honest. I wanted to show everyone what's the actual difference between a diamond and a gold player. Like, what do you need to become a diamond when you're a gold player, right? And the most common misconception is that you need to know how to play the game to be diamond. One thing I can tell you is that a diamond player, like from anybody from diamond 4 to diamond 2, is just as clueless about the game as a gold or a plat player is. The only difference usually being is that the diamond player does one thing well, be it roaming, team fighting, laning phase. It could even be like knowing their champion like to that extreme extent, and they're gonna just climb to diamond because, well, that's just enough. Knowing one game or one specific part of the game that's like important, it's enough to carry you through like gold and plat, because the gold and plat players don't even know a single thing that's good about the game, right? They don't understand like roaming, they don't understand anything. So if you're just good at one thing, you're gonna climb, right? But then when you get to like the diamond, that's where it becomes less of a ladder and more of a stepping stone, right? So an important connotation if you want to climb is to keep it simple and efficient. A common mistake a lot of lower players do that come for coaching or just in general are trying to climb is they're concerned about the stuff they shouldn't even be thinking about. Like, they're concerned about stuff I don't think about. Like, I'm playing in Master Plus every time I load up the game, and like I'm just playing the fucking game, to be honest. Like, it's a video game, and then you're playing in Gold Dealer trying to imitate Dopa, you know what I mean? Like, yes, Dopa is fucking great, like, don't get me wrong, Dopa is much better than I will ever be, but like, that doesn't mean you need to be Dopa to climb. It's kind of frustrating for me when like a gold player is trying to mimic like Dopa's crashing strategies and like his getting 3 levels ahead of challenger player strategies in gold, but they don't even know like their HP bar. Like, I remember this Oriana came to me for coaching. He was like gold, and I told him about the matchup, and I was like, he was playing into Kali. I was like, just don't die level 3, and don't be in lethal range, and then you can just poke her out every time. You can zone her off the way. And he was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then level 3 comes, and guess what happens? He's in lethal range. He dies, and then he's like, oh well, lane is lost because Akali snowballs, obviously, right? And then I asked him after the game, it's like, what happened there? We talked about not being in the lethal, and he was like, oh, I thought I wouldn't die at 450 HP. I was like, you talk about Dopa's wave crashing strategies, you talk about getting ahead 3 levels mid game, but like you don't understand that your champion can die at 450 HP against a matchup that's quite common, in like the most common way to die. Like, you see, like, you miss the core concept of the game, and that happens to a lot of players. Like, that happens to so many players you don't even know, where they understand some stuff that like pro players talk about. They understand the stuff that like the analysts talk about. They understand the stuff that they hear on like streams and stuff. Like, especially junglers, I think that this is like, junglers are extremely guilty of this. They'll know like what time they're supposed to finish their pathing. They'll know exactly the time the enemy jungler comes out of his jungle. They're gonna know, like, a gold player knows all this, right? But like, then you ask him, okay, so which lane should you gang? And he's like, I don't know. Like, what's the win condition? I don't know. But like, you just told me like the most optimal pathing, and yet you don't know the most basic stuff. Like, stop overthinking. Stop trying to be something you're not. When you're watching Dopa play, right? He's playing against Faker. He's playing against what's BDD. He's playing against like all these Korean pros that are like extremely thoughtful, and whatever they do, it gets responded with another move. Like, if Dopa does like I'm just trying to think, like, if Dopa goes to side lane, enemy team responds. Like, if Dopa goes to side lane, his team responds to like correctly, right? When you're in your gold games, go to side lane, what happens is that the whole team just fights 4v5, dies, and then you lose the game. Like, you don't need to apply that advanced knowledge. You don't need to apply the 1v9 strategies. All you need is just simply play the game, stick to the basics, learn how to like, before you learn how to like do a wave 3 crash, learn to back when you have over 1k gold. Like, you're doing these insane crashes and then like you're not getting anything out of it, or like you're so focused on setting up these crashes, you're so focused on setting up these the wave so well, you're so focused on like getting a good back time off, but it's like you just died under their turret because, well, you forgot the jungler even exists in the game, right? It's like, as I said, what that does, like all of this overthinking, it just hurts the base gameplay. You're trying to do too much and forgetting the core concepts of the game. Like, that's literally what's happening. You're just forgetting, like, I can't count how many times a guy has tried to like calculate his cheater recall and just got ganked at level 2 or 3. He's like, oh, what the fuck is the jungler there? Or like, oh, this is actually a really fucking good one. This is another one for the junglers. The guy is and like this is from a coaching session I'm using as an example, but like, let's just say Timmy again. Timmy plays jungle. Timmy does his perfect clear, and he's like going for scuttle crab at 315. Everything's perfect. Like, he's just killing the scuttle crab. Enemy team collapses. He dies. His lanes had Prior but didn't come in. He's like, oh, this is so shit. Like, my team is so bad. Like, my team did not come. Like, why didn't he move? All that stuff. It's like, your whole plan relied on Prior from a gold player. Like, think about it this way, okay? When 5 challengers are in the game, there is still fucking arguments about Prior because everybody understands it differently. Like, they might have the same idea, but like everybody treats it differently. But like, if 5 gold players are in the game, motherfucker, you're the only one thinking about the Prior. Like, nobody else gives a shit. Like, that's just being realistic. Nobody cares about it, and that's why you die, because you get so caught up in this, you forget that, like, to just look at the minimap and see that the enemy mid and top are missing while you're killing Scuttle. You have to learn how to adapt to the situation. So, don't try to play like a challenger in a gold game. You just need to play the game and adapt to whatever the situation may be. They're 100% aware of the skill level they're at, and they play like it. They don't try to play like a challenger most of the time. They just play the game, adapt to whatever the situation may be. Yeah, it's useful to know how Dopa gets an advantage. It's useful to know how he maintains it, but it's way more useful for you to know how to just abuse the basic mistakes every gold dealer player makes. That's rule number 1, right? Keeping it simple. You just need to play the game and just keep it simple. Like, if this motherfucker is gonna hit a CS, I'm gonna hit him once, right? Like, if this guy is just gonna leave the lane, I'm just gonna crash it. You don't need to like be 3 steps ahead of him, because you can't be 3 steps ahead of somebody that's sniffing glue in your games. Like, that's just not possible. I want to talk about efficiency. A huge thing about Diamond players is that their game plan is all cleaned up. Their gameplay is not cleaned up, but their game plan is cleaned up. If a Diamond player comes to me for coaching, they're either an OTP or have very defined champ pool. That's really important, right? They rarely rely on, like, as a gold player, I see like so many gold players play like 140 champions a year in like 500 games. It's like, you're picking up a new champion every 3 games. Like, think about it this way. You're more likely to play a new champion, brand new champion in rank, than you are to play your main champion. Like, Diamond players don't do that. Most of them are OTPs, or like at least have very defined champ pools. They have defined roles. Like, gold players don't even know what the fuck they want to play. Like, one day he's jungling, another day he's playing support, and then the next day he's mid laner. Well, if a Diamond player is playing Sion, he's gonna keep playing Sion. You know what I mean? Like, you can't get him off it. And even if you do, at least he's still playing top. Like, metas change every few weeks, to be honest, in League of Legends. It's like, your role is never gonna stay the best role ever. And the role you picked up next is never gonna stay the best role ever. That's just not how the game works. Yes, I know everybody wants to be main character, everybody wants to play mid lane, but like, mid lane is in a terrible spot. Then everybody jumps to playing ADC because ADC is quite close to mid lane in terms of the skill set, right? And then they go back to mid lane when ADC is bad. That's just stick with it. You have to clench your butthole and stick with it. That's all you have to do. Trust me when I say this. It's 10 times harder to climb if you're playing 10 different champions a day. Stick to a few champions, stick to a single role, and power through with it. Like, your role is never going to be the best. And I know exactly how you're thinking. Oh, mid is the best role that week. I'm going to play mid. Now, mid gets nerfed. Like, let's say your champion that you play in mid gets nerfed. Now you're playing ADC because ADC is the flavor of the month, right? And next day you're playing support because you're bored of ADC. Like, you play I guarantee you half the gold players play 5 roles a year. Like, That's how most of them are. And I know that because I coach these guys, right? So stop that. You can't play the game and learn from the game as you're playing it if you don't know the cooldowns of your abilities. Like, it's simple as that. Like, how are you supposed to learn about wave control and all this if you don't know like what your champion's basic cooldowns are, if you don't know like what your champion's level 11 ultimate cooldown is? Stop complaining about your role or champion. This goes out to every OTP. I know your champion is weak. I know your champion has been weak for 7 seasons, like every single OTP ever says. But like, just think about it this way, okay? Metas come and go, and in this meta, your champion might be stronger. In another meta, it might be weaker. But if you know how to play that champion when the meta is weak, you're gonna be so fucking good when the meta is good for him. And if you're climbing when the meta is weak for that champion, even if you're slowly climbing, at some point the meta is gonna turn around and you're gonna power through the rankings really fast. Like real fast. Now, next thing I want to touch on is Blitz and PowerFS or whatever other apps you may be using. You need to stop relying on these apps. If they all went offline today, what would you know about runes? Like, if you always have a machine, do your runes, do your matchups, all that stuff, how are you supposed to understand what the difference between domination and inspiration is if you don't have the basic understanding of the runes? Like, how are you supposed to know when to take them if you don't like know anything? And do you think these apps give you good results? No, they just take data, and data is never right. Like, obviously data is really good to like have as a reference point, but you can't just be a numbers guy. You know what I mean? Data does not account for the player's ability to play the game. If you're playing Twisted Fate, some players might be better with resolve because they're wards in lane, right? Like, obviously you want to resolve in any assassin matchup, but like, you might be doing better with resolve in any matchup because simply you avoid that laning phase damage, and then you're able to make use of the Twisted Fate's strongest points of the game, which is, you know, outside of the laning phase. Some players might prefer inspiration because, well, saves the gold and all that stuff, gives you sustain and all that. It just depends on your playstyle and stuff, like, and that's not even accounting for matchups, which Blitz and PowerFS get wrong most of the time, to be honest. Like, they're just accounting for your direct matchup, if they're even accounting for that. They're never accounting for the 10 players in the game, right? If these apps go offline today, what are you? Like, how are you gonna play the game? See, that's the difference between you and a diamond player, if you're gold, of course. Doing research and trying stuff for yourself is extremely important for improvement. You have to find what works for you. You can't just blindly follow the pro players. If you play Orianna and some good Orianna streamer says X matchup is terrible or Y matchup is great, doesn't mean that those matchups are exactly like that for you when you play Orianna, because when you're piloting the champion and you're piloting against another gold player, the matchup could be a toss-up. Like, you might know some stuff that he doesn't and just win it every time. Some stuff might just work for you that just doesn't for even a challenger player. Like, if a player plays Orianna in Challenger and he's really good at her, but he's like very aggressive, that's how he gets his edge, right? He's super aggressive, he knows the laning phase well, and you're just an opposite player. You're like more passive, you're more teamfight reliant, more roam reliant, right? Or like more CSing reliant. What the player that's Challenger says is not gonna apply to you, because you're just not that type of player, not like very feast or famine. So like, then if a matchup might be good for him because he knows how to abuse it, well, that doesn't mean it's good for you because, well, it's just not your playstyle. You have to account for your playstyle. You have to account for your strengths and weaknesses. You have to factor in the fact that like, no two humans are the same. And you're never gonna be Challenger playing. If you're playing Rengar, you're never gonna be Challenger playing how Scrubnir plays it, because he's been doing it for years and years and years, and he knows exactly what you're doing it. Do you have years to spare? Just because somebody's really good at Orianna doesn't mean they can't be wrong in their statements about her, right? Like, if somebody's really good at Rengar, doesn't mean he can't be wrong when talking about Rengar. My number one advice is do your own research and try stuff. It's okay to fail. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, because growth doesn't come from comfort, and it's comfortable to follow what somebody else is doing and just repeat that because it works for them. And yes, it might work for you as well, but like, are you actually taking the most advantage of your strength? And yeah, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the content. This was my first actual video. I would appreciate feedback, positive or negative. Yeah, so thank you guys. This was Frickson. I hope you have a great evening. Thank you.